What's up, guys? Justin here with TheSketchUpEssentials.com, back with another SketchUp quick tutorial for you. So in today's video, I wanted to talk about a couple ways to quickly resize textures inside of your SketchUp models. If you're looking for more great SketchUp tips, make sure to check out my free SketchUp tips guide at TheSketchUpEssentials.com/tips. Now let's go ahead and just jump into it. All right, so to start off, if you want to follow along with this model, you can download it from the 3D warehouse. This one's called the 3D Villa 18 by Nicholas Ebner. You can do this with pretty much any other model as well. I like this one because it's got kind of a big grass yard in here, which really lets us kind of see what the texture materials are doing. And so what I want to do is I want to take a look at this texture that's been applied to this front yard. And you can see how the texture that's been applied, if I was to go in here and use the eyedropper in order to check it out, this is the vegetation grass artificial, which I believe is one of the materials that comes along with SketchUp when you download it. And so if we take a look at this, one thing that I don't necessarily like about what this material is doing, especially over here, is that you're getting a lot of tiling because the texture image that's getting applied is getting applied, it's repeating a lot, and what you end up with is you end up with this, you get the same kind of thing tiling over and over again, and it just doesn't look super realistic. And I mean, it's not the end of the world, especially if you're doing like a, you know, more of a diagram or something like that, but sometimes you want either to make a material bigger or you just want to reduce this tiling effect. So what I wanted to do was show you how to work on that. And so the way that we're going to do that is we can adjust the material that's been applied in here in a couple different ways. And so the first thing we need to do in order to edit a material is we need to select it. And you can select it by going into the materials section of your tray, clicking on the eyedropper, which is the sample paint tool, and then clicking on your material. That's going to select the material inside of your model. Well, now that it's selected, you can see how your little preview shows up right here, and we can go in and we can start adjusting this. And so to adjust this, we're going to click on this button for Edit. What Edit's going to do is Edit's going to allow us to come in here and adjust the different attributes of the material. And so in SketchUp, materials are kind of made up of two different things. The first thing that they're made up of is a color. So you can see how the color right here is kind of a green color. And then down here, this is where you set the texture image that's being applied in here. So we're going to focus on that for right now. I'm not going to talk about the colors too much. Maybe I'll do another video on that. But what I want to talk about specifically is the ability to resize your textures, which you can adjust down here in these two boxes. So you can see how right now this texture is set to tile every 2 feet. And so let's say, for example, you wanted this to tile less. You could come in here and you could adjust this by typing in a value like 5 feet. And then I can go ahead and hit the tab key or something like that to get out of that box. But you can see how when you did that, this texture in here resized to be a lot larger than it was before. And that's because where before, when this was at 2 feet, this was tiling this every 2 feet. When you set it at 5 feet, it's tiling it every 5 feet instead. So you can see how because this is a larger grass material, there's still tiling in here, but it's not nearly as much as what it was before. And so that adjusted basically everywhere this material was applied inside of this model. So you can see how this is all adjusted to that larger size. So that's one way that you can adjust a material size quickly, is just to come in here and set these dimensions. One thing I want to note about that is if you ever want to go back to the default dimensions, you can just click on this button for undo height and width changes. That'll take you back to whatever the original setting was when you first set this in here. And then the other thing to note is, depending on what you're trying to do, it's kind of important that you have this chain not set as broken, but that you have it showing as a chain. And what that does is that locks the aspect ratio of your image. Because again, all this is doing is this is taking an image and it's tiling it along a face in order to fill in the face. Well, if you were to uncheck this and then set one of these to like 10 feet or something like that, or maybe even like let's really kind of do we'll go really large. If you set this to like 30 feet and you leave the other one to 5 feet, you can see how what you start getting in here is you start getting distortion, because what this is doing is this is stretching this image to fit these revised dimensions. And so usually, occasionally I'll change this. Most of the time you want to make sure that you set this to be locked. So, but again, if you ever make a mistake, you can just click on this button right here in order to put that back the way that you want it to be, or the way that it was originally. And so I'm going to leave this set at 5 foot by 5 foot, and then I'm going to show you another way to adjust this that's a little more visual. So in addition to being able to adjust your texture size inside your materials section, you can also adjust it by coming in here and clicking on the raw face. So you do have to be on the raw face. So if this is in a group, you have to click inside the group, but you can right click on this, select the option for texture, and you can click the button for position. And so what position is going to do is, first of all, it's going to let you place the texture based on a point that you set. So you click and drag these pins in order to place the texture, but I want to focus more on this one right here for now, which is the scale and rotate. So if you were to take this and you were to click and drag it, you can see how the scale or this pin is going to let you manually adjust the sizing of this texture. And so you can see how this allows you to have a whole lot of control over how large this texture is going to be. You can also rotate it and change it. So if you wanted this to be like 45 degrees or something like that, you can click and drag that this way as well. But you can click and do this to resize your texture however you want. And so one thing I do want to note about doing that way is if you come in here and you adjust this texture and you position it and resize it, just because you've resized the texture on this face, on this front face right here, does not mean that the other instances of this texture were also resized. So like right now, for example, you can see how this grass texture is actually larger than this texture over here. And so you do have to be a little bit careful about this. Most of the time when I do this, what I do after I make an adjustment like this is I will make a unique texture if I want to have different copies of this texture inside of my model. Or the other thing you can do is if you want to take this larger material and apply it, you can sample it and then click over here and apply that to your other faces. So if you adjust a texture using position texture, you may have to go in and manually reapply some of that material in here in order to get the right size or the adjusted size on these other faces. And so the last thing I want to do is just real quick demo bringing in a material and resizing that. And so for this, I'm going to bring in a material from SketchUpTextureClub.com, and you can download this material for free. It's called the Football Green Grass Texture Seamless. And so you are going to have to create a login in order to download this. And so when I bring this material in, what that's going to look like is that's just going to have an image file in here, which is going to look like this, that we're going to import as a texture. And so in order to do that, we're going to create a new material inside of SketchUp. So you're just going to go into SketchUp and you're just going to click the button right here for Create Material. And there's actually a couple different ways to do this. We'll just go with this for this tutorial. But I'm just going to call this Football Grass. And then what we're going to do with our new texture is we're going to go find that location for that image file. So in this case, I'm just going to go to this folder and I'm going to find this image file and I'm going to double click on it. And you can see how now this gives me a preview of what this material is going to look like. I'm just going to click OK. And so for this front lawn, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select my football grass material, and I'm going to apply that to this face. And so the first thing you're going to notice is when you apply this to this face, your strips in here are really small. So usually you get stripes like this in grass because of the way you mow them. Well, this is clearly too small for us to have mowed that. So what we need to do is we need to resize it. And so probably the quickest and easiest way to resize it is just to go into Edit, and we're just going to try a couple different sizes. So I'm going to go into this box, type in 10 feet. That's still not quite big enough. So maybe 20 feet. So that's looking a little bit better. So you can see how I was able to resize this material really easily. So now this material looks fairly realistic. And so we could talk a little bit about rotating it and all of that with the position texture tool. I think I'm going to save that for another video. But you can see how these two ways of sizing your materials make it really easy to make adjustments like this inside of SketchUp. So that's where I'm going to end this video. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought. Have you been using this? Did you know how to resize textures? I just love having that SketchUp conversation with you guys. If you like this video, please remember to click that like button down below. If you're new around here, remember to click that subscribe button for new SketchUp content every week. If you like what I'm doing on this channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Every little bit helps, even if it's only $1 a month. So make sure you check out that link in the notes down below. But in any case, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.